Okay, let's set the scene. It's late in the 5th century BCE. Athens is, well, it feels like it's on top of the world.
Absolutely. An empire built on sea power, democracy, culture. They seemed almost untouchable after the Persian Wars.
But power, unchecked power, it can curdle into something else, can it? Hubris.
Exactly. And for Athens, that moment, that fatal overreach, had a very specific destination, Sicily.
Which brings us to today's deep dive. We're looking at what some call the Sicilian graveyard.
It really was. This expedition becomes the massive turning point in the whole Peloponnesian War. Athens already deep into this long fight with Sparta.
Decades long, yeah.
Decades. And they decide to commit, well, basically their entire strategic reserve. Experienced soldiers, the fleet, everything, on this adventure overseas that was completely unnecessary.
It wasn't just a defeat, was it? It sounds more like a complete system collapse.
Oh, absolutely. Political, logistical, even spiritual. It fundamentally broke the empire's back.
So our mission today, unpack this whole disaster.
Yeah.
The campaign against Syracuse, 415 to 413 BC. We need to get beyond just they lost and really dig into the why.
The strategy, the politics, the tactics, all these errors piling up.
Because the result was the annihilation of this huge force.
Yeah.
A force Athens simply couldn't replace.
And the scale, you really need to grasp the scale from the outset. We're talking over 200 triremes lost.
200. These are the cutting-edge warships of the day.
The absolute peak of their technology and wealth. And then tens of thousands of soldiers. But maybe even more critically, the oarsmen.
The experienced rowers.
Irreplaceable. They were the engine of the Athenian navy, of their democracy, really. Wiped out. A huge chunk of their total manpower gone, just like that.
It's just staggering. When you read Thucydides, who lived through it,
Our main source, yeah.
he points out that people weren't shocked Athens eventually fell to Sparta, which happens, 10 years later?
Less than a decade, yeah.
What shocked them was that Athens managed to keep fighting for 10 more years after this, after losing so much in Sicily.
It speaks to Athenian resilience, but also to the sheer depth of the catastrophe.
Okay, let's unpack this then. How does this supposedly unbeatable naval power just walk right into its own grave so spectacularly?
Well, you have to start with the why. Why Sicily in the first place? For Athens, it was this glittering prize, but also a looming threat.
A prize in terms of potential conquest, right?
Yeah.
Wealth, expansion westward.
Definitely. But also a strategic threat centered on Syracuse.
The big power on the island. And Syracuse was Dorian, like Sparta.
Exactly. So culturally aligned with Athens' main enemy, always a risk they'd help the Peloponnesians send grain, maybe ships.
Plus, Athens had allies there already, the Ionian cities, so they could frame it as, defending fellow Ionians.
A convenient justification. And don't forget Corinth, Athens' big trade rival. Syracuse had close ties there too. More friction.
So the stage is set for conflict, even though technically there's peace.
Technically, the Peace of Nicias from 421 BC, but it was shaky at best, never fully implemented. Sparta didn't give back Amphipolis, Athens kept Pylos.
And Alcibiades had already stirred things up.
Oh, yes. Backing that anti-Spartan coalition at Mantinea in 418, the peace was more like a pause than a real settlement.
And then comes the spark, this appeal from a city called Segesta.
Segesta, yeah.
Yeah.
A smaller Athenian ally in Sicily. They asked for help against their neighbor, Selinus, in 416 BC.
But this wasn't just a straightforward plea for help.
Not at all. It was built on, well, a pretty elaborate deception about money.
They needed to convince Athens they could pay for the help.
Precisely. They promised 60 talents of silver up front. Then they pulled this incredible trick on the Athenian ambassadors sent to check their finances.
How did that work?
They basically gathered up all the gold and silver stuff they owned, cups, bowls, whatever, and paraded it in front of the Athenians. But they did it cleverly, moving the same stuff from house to house.
So the Athenians saw the same treasure multiple times, but thought it was different sets.
Exactly, creating this illusion of vast wealth. It was pure theater.
And Athens bought it.
Hook, line, and sinker. It got the initial approval from the assembly. But just for a small force, 60 ships, no heavy infantry. Manageable.
A limited intervention. Settle the local spat, show the flag, maybe gain a bit of influence.
That was the idea. But then Athenian politics intervened, and things got messy.
Because you had these two big factions,
Right.
Constantly clashing.
Right. You had the peace party, led by Nicias, older guy, very cautious, respected, wealthy, pious.
And the war party.
Led by Alcibiades, young, brilliant, ambitious, charismatic, but also reckless and controversial. He was all about expansion.
So the initial approval for 60 ships wasn't the end of it.
Not by a long shot. There's a second assembly meeting to finalize the details. And this is where Nicias makes his huge catastrophic mistake.
He still wants to stop it, even after the first vote.
Desperately, but he realizes he can't just argue against it directly. The idea of conquering Sicily is too popular, too exciting.
So he tries a different tactic.
A really cynical one. He basically says, okay, you want to go to Sicily? Fine. But you need to understand how powerful these cities are, especially Syracuse. If we're going to do this properly, we can't send a small force. We need something massive.
Trying to scare them off with the price tag.
Exactly. He demands this enormous fleet, over 100 ships, 5,000 hoplite soldiers. He thinks the sheer cost, the massive commitment, will make the assembly back down.
But it doesn't work like that.
It backfires spectacularly. The assembly hears Nicias describing the scale needed, and instead of getting scared, they get excited.
They see it as confirmation that this is a truly grand undertaking, worthy of Athens.
Precisely. They enthusiastically vote for the massive force. They basically give the generals a blank check to assemble this huge armada.
Wow. So Nicias, trying to prevent a disaster, actually ends up guaranteeing it'll be the biggest disaster possible if things go wrong.
That's exactly what historians like Donald Kagan argue. If that first small force had failed, it would have hurt. But Athens could absorb it.
But losing this force,
losing this massive fleet and army, that becomes potentially fatal. Nicias' intervention, ironically, made the stakes astronomically higher.
So Athens commits. The biggest fleet they've ever put together is getting ready, driven by ambition, political maneuvering,
and sheer hubris. But even before they set sail, things start to go wrong. Omens. Conspiracies.
The mutilation of the Hermae. This sounds serious.
Extremely serious. The night before sailing, someone goes around Athens and defaces the Hermae. These were stone pillars, usually with the head of Hermes on top, sometimes with an erect phallus.
They were everywhere, sacred markers.
Everywhere. Outside homes, temples, at crossroads. They marked boundaries, offered protection. It was deeply sacrilegious to damage them.
So people saw this not just as vandalism.
No, it was seen as a terrible omen for the expedition, which involved crossing boundaries, obviously, and worse, as possible evidence of a conspiracy to overthrow the democracy. Revolution.
And suspicion immediately falls on Alcibiades.
Of course. His political enemies jump on it. They accuse him not only of the Hermae, but also of profaning the Eleusinian mysteries.
The most sacred religious rites in Athens.
The most sacred. Accusing him of mocking them in private parties, it was incredibly damaging, politically and religiously.
Did he do it?
It's debated. Plutarch suggests the charges were likely false, politically motivated, but the timing was key.
Alcibiades wanted to face trial immediately, right? Before sailing.
Yes. He knew his main support was the army, the thousands of soldiers about to leave with him. He wanted to clear his name while they were still in Athens.
But his enemies didn't let him.
No, they cleverly argued he should sail now and face charges later. They waited until the fleet was gone, then formally charged him and sent a ship to recall him.
So he sails, gets partway.
Reaches Thurii in Italy, and then he slips away. He doesn't go back to Athens to face trial.
Where does he go?
He defects, goes straight to the Peloponnese, to Sparta.
Athens' mortal enemy. That's huge.
It's a massive blow. Athens sentences him to death in his absence, but now Sparta has him, and he knows everything.
All the plans, the weaknesses, the logistics for Sicily.
Everything. He becomes an invaluable advisor to the Spartans. We'll see the direct consequences of his advice very soon.
So, back on the expedition, Alcibiades is gone. Who's left in charge?
Just two generals now. The ever-reluctant Nicias, who is also apparently suffering from ill health, maybe kidney disease.
Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. And Lamachus, the experienced professional soldier.
And they still had different ideas about what to do next.
Oh, yes. When they finally reach Sicily and confirm Segesta lied about the money, the strategic debate flares up again.
Nicias still wants to just go home or do the bare minimum.
Pretty much. Force a settlement between Segesta and Selinus, maybe sail around Sicily to show Athenian power and then leave. Cut their losses.
And Alcibiades, before he was recalled, what was his plan?
His was more about diplomacy first. Win over Sicilian allies, build a network, secure bases, then attack Syracuse and Selinus from a position of strength.
And Lamachus, the soldier?
Lamachus wanted speed. Attack Syracuse now, directly. Exploit the surprise before they could fully prepare or get reinforcements. He argued for a quick, decisive blow.
Which, looking back, Sounds like maybe the best option.
Many historians think so. A swift attack might have worked early on, but it didn't happen.
Why not?
Because Lamachus, perhaps wanting consensus or overruled by Nicias' seniority, eventually agreed to go along with a version of Alcibiades' more cautious diplomatic plan.
So the crucial moment for a surprise attack was lost.
Lost. They spent valuable time sailing along the coast, trying to win over smaller cities, negotiating, time that Syracuse used brilliantly to wake up to the danger and start preparing its defenses.
Okay, so the massive Athenian forces finally in Sicily. They've wasted time, lost a key commander to defection, and the element of surprise is gone.
Pretty much. And after confirming Segesta had no money, the pressure was immense. They had this huge, expensive force. They had to do something.
Even though Syracuse had initially been slow to react.
Yeah, there was infighting there, too. Some Syracusans didn't even believe the invasion was real at first, thought it was a ploy by their own leader, Hermocrates, to gain power.
But that complacency didn't last.
No. Once the Athenians started making moves, Syracuse got serious.
And the Athenians finally land near Syracuse on the Epipolae.
Yes, in 414 BC. The Epipolae, this is crucial terrain. It's the high plateau overlooking the city. Controlling it is key to controlling Syracuse.
And they managed to take it.
They do. That's an early success. And the siege begins properly.
But it wasn't a simple siege. It became a construction project.
A massive, desperate race to build walls. The Athenians started building their circle, a circumvallation wall designed to completely cut Syracuse off by land.
From the sea inland to block everything.
Right. But the Syracusans raced to build their own counter walls, trying to intercept the Athenian wall and keep a lifeline open to the interior.
So constant fighting over bits of wall.
Exactly. Brutal skirmishes, attacks, counterattacks, all focused on these wall sections. Engineering meets warfare.
And it's during one of these fights that Lamachus falls.
Yes. Leading an attack to stop a Syracusan counterwall effort, Lamachus is killed in action.
Leaving Nicias alone.
Sole commander. The one man who never wanted to be there, who opposed the whole thing, who's sick and overly cautious. He's now in total charge of this massive, complex, high-stakes siege.
You can just feel the momentum draining away.
It really shifts. And just as Athens is faltering, help arrives for Syracuse, thanks to Alcibiades.
Ah, the defector's advice pays off for Sparta.
Big time. Alcibiades told Sparta two things. Send help to Syracuse and fortify Decilia back in Attica near Athens.
Decilia, that was the nightmare scenario for Athens, right?
Yeah.
A permanent Spartan fort so close.
Their absolute worst fear. Constant raids, disruption of farming, cutting off the silver mines. But the immediate impact was sending Gylippus to Sicily.
Just one Spartan general.
Just one. But Gylippus was dynamic, competent. He lands elsewhere in Sicily, gathers a mixed force, some Spartans, allies, armed sailors, Sicilian natives.
And marches on Syracuse.
Marches on Syracuse, gets inside the city, and immediately changes the game. He's a much better land commander than Nicias.
How so? What does he do?
He uses his forces more flexibly, especially cavalry and light infantry, javelin throwers. He starts winning the skirmishes on the ground outside the walls.
And the walls themselves.
This is the killer blow. Gylippus manages, through tactical skill and inspiring the Syracusans, to finish the Syracusan counterwall before the Athenians can complete their circle.
So the Athenian blockade is broken.
Completely broken. The Athenian wall is now useless. Syracuse can't be fully surrounded by land anymore. The whole strategic basis of the siege collapses.
Oh, all that effort wasted.
Totally wasted. The siege grinds to a halt. Stalemate. But a stalemate that favors Syracuse now.
Nicias must be desperate at this point. Late 414 BC.
Utterly desperate. He's sick. The siege has failed. Morale is probably plummeting. He writes this famous letter back to Athens.
What does it say?
It's a masterclass in trying to avoid blame, really. He details the failures, blames the troops, blames the situation, emphasizes Gylippus' arrival.
And then he gives Athens options.
Two options. Option one, recall the entire expedition immediately, which is clearly what he wants. Option two, send massive, overwhelming reinforcements, even bigger than the first lot.
He's doing it again, trying to make the costs so high they'll just call him home.
Exactly. He's hoping the assembly will finally say, okay, this is too much, bring them back. His second huge political miscalculation.
Because Athens doubles down.
Athens doubles down again. They refuse to admit defeat, refuse to write off the huge investment already made. The prestige is on the line.
So they approve the reinforcements.
They approve everything Nicias asked for, a whole second armada, more ships, more troops, under two new generals, Demosthenes and Eurymedon.
Demosthenes. He was an experienced commander.
Yes, known for being more aggressive, more decisive than Nicias. He arrives in 413 BC with 73 ships, 5,000 more hoplites. A massive injection of force.
Does that turn things around? Briefly.
It provides a temporary boost, absolutely. And Demosthenes sees the situation clearly. He knows they either need a quick, decisive victory now, or they need to get out immediately. The stalemate is killing them through disease and attrition.
So he pushes for action.
He does. Against Nicias' advice, who's still counseling caution, Demosthenes plans a daring night attack.
On what?
On the Syracusan counterwall up on Epipolae, the one Gylippus completed. If they can take that, maybe they can regain the upper hand.
A night attack. Risky.
Extremely risky, and it goes horribly wrong.
Oh, no.
Confusion in the dark, unfamiliar terrain. The Athenians get disorganized. They run into a disciplined Spartan contingent. Panic sets in.
Friendly fire. Chaos.
Total chaos. They start fighting each other in the darkness. The retreat becomes a rout. Many fall off the cliffs. Huge casualties. Maybe 2,000 men lost in one night.
Devastating. And morale must have just hit rock bottom after that.
Absolutely shattered. Demosthenes now knows it's over. He argues forcefully, we have to leave. Now. Retreat immediately. Sail back to defend Athens itself.
Especially with Thessalia, now fortified by the Spartans back home.
Exactly. Attica is being ravaged. They need these troops back home. It's strategically obvious.
But Nicias.
Nicias still refuses. He's terrified. Not of the enemy, but of the Athenian assembly. He fears being put on trial and executed for failure if they go back now.
So he prefers to stay, even in a hopeless situation.
Yes. And he clutches at straws, rumors of pro-Athenian factions inside Syracuse about to stage a coup. Baseless hope.
This is agonizing. How long does this delay last?
For a while, until finally, even Nicias can't deny the reality anymore. Disease is rampant, the army is wasting away. He reluctantly agrees to retreat.
So they prepare to leave.
They start preparations, August 28th, 413 BC, and then the lunar eclipse happens.
Oh no. For a superstitious man like Nicias.
It's the worst possible sign. He immediately consults his priests, his diviners.
And they say?
They recommend waiting. According to their interpretation of the omens, they must wait 27 days. 3 times 9 days?
27 days.
Yeah.
In that situation.
27 days. That delay, born entirely of superstition overriding military necessity, seals their fate.
What do the Syracusans do during that time?
They seize the opportunity. They work furiously and completely blockade the entrance to the Great Harbor. They chain ships together, drive stakes. The Athenian fleet is trapped inside.
No escape by sea now.
None. The only option left is a final, desperate battle inside the harbor, September 9th.
A naval battle in a confined space. Not good for the Athenians.
Terrible for them. Their whole advantage was speed and maneuverability in open water. The dicolis, that tactic of sailing through enemy lines, shearing off oars, then ramming.
Can't do that in a crowded harbor.
Impossible. It just becomes a brutal slugfest. Ships ramming each other head-on, more like a land battle on water.
And Syracusans had another trick.
A brilliant, simple one. They covered their decks with wet animal hides.
Why?
To counter the Athenian grappling hooks. The Athenians relied on grabbing enemy ships and boarding with their heavy hoplites. The slippery hides meant the hooks couldn't get a grip.
Ingenious, so the Athenians couldn't board effectively.
Right. Their hoplite advantage was neutralized. The battle turns into a disaster for Athens. Their fleet is routed, smashed against the shore. Crews panic, abandon ships.
Any resistance?
There's a moment where some allied Etruscan warriors fight bravely on the beach, stopping Gylippus's troops from capturing all the ships immediately. But the naval battle is decisively lost.
So the fleet is gone. What about the army? 40,000 people still there.
Utterly demoralized. They refuse to even try getting on the few ships that might be salvageable. They demand a retreat by land, try to march inland to friendly territory.
This sounds like the beginning of the end.
It is. The retreat becomes a death march. Constant harassment from Syracusan cavalry and light infantry. No rest, no proper order. The sick and wounded slowing everyone down.
It breaks down completely.
It does. The force splits. Demosthenes gets separated with about 6,000 men. They get surrounded near a river, the Nicias, and are forced to surrender.
And Nicias, with the main body.
He pushes on, trying to reach the Athenian River. They're desperate for water.
And at the river.
It's just horror. Thirst drives them mad. Discipline completely collapses. Men trampling each other, fighting each other just to get to the water.
While the enemy watches.
And then attacks. The Syracusans are waiting on the other side. They just descend on the chaotic, desperate mass of Athenians struggling in the river. It's a massacre.
Thucydides' description is brutal. The river running red.
He says it was the bloodiest, most complete defeat of the entire expedition in terms of lives lost right there. Just sheer butchery.
What happens to Nicias?
He finds Gylippus and personally surrenders, maybe hoping his past role in the Peace of Nicias treaty would earn him some mercy from the Spartan.
Does it?
Gylippus apparently wanted to spare both Nicias and Demosthenes, perhaps take them back to Sparta as trophies. But the Syracusans and Corinthians insisted.
Did they execute them?
Both generals are executed, a grim end to a catastrophic campaign.
So looking back at this total failure, what are the main takeaways? Historians point to what?
Well, beyond the initial massive strategic mistake of going at all, the consensus really focuses on leadership, or the failure of it.
Yes, just incompetence.
Largely, yes, compounded by losing Alcibiades early on. Nicias was just too indecisive, too cautious, too prone to wishful thinking. He let the situation drift when decisive action was needed.
And specific tactical errors, too.
Oh, definitely. Putting the siege wall too close to the city walls, making it vulnerable, placing the supply depot in a bad spot, fundamentally failing to use the fleet's strengths, or, crucially, failing to recognize when it was time to cut losses and retreat.
He had the biggest force Athens ever assembled and just squandered it.
Pretty much. Which leads to the aftermath in Athens itself. How did they even react?
Disbelief at first. Right? That famous story about the barbershop.
Yeah, the messenger arrives with the news, tells someone in a barbershop, and the authorities initially refuse to believe it. They torture the first messenger until more survivors arrive and confirm the unthinkable. Complete annihilation.
And once reality sinks in.
Panic. Utter panic. The sheer scale of the loss is hard to comprehend. All those ships gone. But worse, the manpower, especially the skilled oarsmen. Maybe 30,000 lost over the whole campaign?
How do you replace that?
You can't, really. Not with experienced men. They had to start using slaves, poorly trained foreigners. The quality of the Athenian navy, its backbone, was permanently damaged.
And the political fallout.
Immediate revolts among their allies in the Delian League, seeing Athens weakened. And Sparta, of course, presses its advantage, especially with Decilia now permanently occupied, bleeding Athens dry.
So this really is the beginning of the end for the Athenian Empire.
Absolutely. It's a human catastrophe, as Thucydides said, comparable to the plague earlier in the war. It drains their treasury, breaks their military strength, shatters their confidence, leads directly to their final defeat in 404 BC.
And the memory of it.
Yeah.
The cultural impact. You mentioned the quarries.
Yes, the Latomii. The 7,000 or so prisoners who survived the final massacre, they weren't treated as prisoners of war. They were thrown into these open-air stone quarries near Syracuse.
For how long? What were conditions like?
10 weeks. Exposed to the elements, given starvation rations of food and water, disease rampant, horrific conditions. Most died there. The survivors were eventually sold into slavery.
A truly grim monument to the whole disaster.
It really is a physical scar representing the cost of Athenian hubris. And that's why I think the story still resonates.
People still draw parallels today.
Constantly. Whenever a major power gets bogged down in a disastrous foreign intervention, especially one driven by overconfidence or faulty intelligence, Sicily often gets mentioned. It's become a kind of historical shorthand for imperial overreach leading to catastrophe.
So let's leave our listeners with a final thought on this. Thinking about that moment with Nicias and the lunar eclipse.
That 27-day delay, purely because of superstition or maybe intense personal fear dressed up as piety.
Yeah, how often, even today, does that kind of thing happen? Maybe not superstition exactly, but personal ego, fear of admitting a mistake, sticking to a plan long after it's clearly failed.
Right. Overriding clear strategic or business logic because of sunk costs, political pressure, or just a leader's inability to say, we were wrong, we need to pull back.
It makes you wonder how many failures, big or small, ultimately come down to that human element, the refusal to cut losses, to retreat when reason demands it. Something to think about.